We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook.
Hey, White House and Biden administration, how you doing? So listen, we all know you've been telling Facebook what to censor, and now you want to censor text messages next. Well, we know this is what you've been up to because you said it, and you probably shouldn't have said these parts out loud. I think you might be, shall we say, a little out of touch with how people perceive you. I mean, you're coming on pretty strong, pretty fast. So I wanted to give you some specific feedback to help you out. We'll go through some of your problems and what you can do to make them better. Point number 1, just so you know, we all know what you're doing, with a whole authoritarian takeover kind of thing. And it's great. I'm not saying not to. It's just as you're doing it, you should probably act like that's not what you're doing. Because some of us are willing to pretend that's not what you're doing when you're not showing your hand. But now it's like you're playing poker with your cards facing outward. We can see. Point number 2. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said this.
We are in regular touch with these social media platforms. We've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation.
The problem with this is it couldn't violate the First Amendment anymore. It'd be impossible. And most people have heard of this amendment, so you should act like you care about it. I know what you're saying, White House. Well, the government has to respect its citizens' right to free speech, but private companies like Facebook don't. But when you're telling Facebook what to censor, that's the government censoring US citizens. That's actually why Donald Trump is suing Facebook, Twitter, and Google. And I think by you saying this part out loud,
we're flagging problematic posts for Facebook.
You helped out Trump's lawsuit significantly. We know you've been working with big tech behind the scenes, telling them what to censor, but you weren't admitting it then. And when Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg are being grilled in Senate hearings, they were lying about it too. I would just go back to doing it this old way in secrecy. Because when you, the government, tell the citizens that you're taking away their right to free speech, the public won't stand for it. Because at the point we're at now, people are going to start to remember Dave Chappelle's words. The First Amendment is first for a reason, and the Second Amendment is just in case the first one doesn't work out. Oh, White House, just one more note on the First Amendment that you are violating with your state-sponsored censorship. It's not the right to free speech that's only in line with what the White House deems to be true. I know this because I read the First Amendment, and I apologize if that's a little uninclusive to illiterate people. Maybe in public schools we should replace reading with critical race theory. Oh, you guys have already done that. Great. Even if the White House was aligned with absolute truth, and I know you are all the time, the First Amendment gives people the right to speak otherwise. It gives people the right to even speak falsehoods, as long as they're not inciting panic. And the First Amendment also gives people the right to speak truth, even when it runs contrary to the lies that you are trying to portray as the truth. Even on those rare occasions. It's the right to free speech, whether that speech is aligned with truth, inaccuracies, or a little bit of both, which tends to be the case with most things that are said. There is no misinformation clause in the First Amendment. It's not constitutional language. It's authoritarian language. I know, but you're doing it for our protection. That's why you want to abolish the First Amendment and you determine what's misinformation and then censor it. I know you're just doing it because you care, but we don't believe you care because you're not caring people. We can see you. The public just doesn't want to give up its right to free speech in the name of you determining what disinformation is. Plus, you've got a horrible track record of determining what disinformation is. Amongst other examples, you kind of spent a whole year trying to convince the public that the lab leak theory was disinformation. Just for one example. We know what you're saying. but we just want to flag problematic posts on Facebook. Well, the problem is that we know that what's problematic for your agenda is anything that promotes freedom or comes from the right. So kind of like anything that supports your political opposition is problematic for you, even when it's rooted in truth. Oh, but you promise not to suppress your political opposition so you can't run away with fully installing an authoritarian regime? Well, when you put it that way, we believe you. I mean, who can even remember you using big tech to help Biden win the election and silence all speech online about election integrity and scrub social media about Hunter Biden's laptop, even though officials in Delaware already had enough information to seek search warrants and issue grand jury subpoenas? And that's before big tech started censoring about his laptop. Oh, and we also don't remember how you had the sitting president deplatform from social media and then had Parler completely kicked off the internet to completely silence opposing views. So, letting you determine what's problematic is simply not a right you have, or a right the public wants to give you. Censoring texts. The Biden administration and DNC plan on working with text message carriers to censor misinformation from texts. Okay, censoring people's personal communication with friends on their phones. Yes, it's for their protection. That's a given, of course. But you know how, like, if someone went over to their friend's house, they don't need you there for their protection? It's kind of like that. Only with texts, things are like 100 times safer because you can't hurt someone with words. And of course, there's that whole pesky First Amendment thing to consider. Okay, now a couple bonus pieces of advice. Your whole strategy for manipulating people into getting the needs some work. And now you say you're going to be knocking on people's doors? Now try to understand this. Up until this point, with how hard you've been pushing this thing, you're kind of like a guy who goes up to a girl and says, I want to you. And she's like, no. And then you grab her wrist and say, I really want to you. The harder you go at her, the more she'll resist what you want. So you're kind of making people say no. And now with you knocking on doors, you're kind of like, well, I'm gonna you even if you don't want to. So just so you know, people kind of find that violating. So maybe pump the brakes on your aggressiveness. And if you really want to stretch it, you could just like respect freedom of choice. But it's a stretch. Another point of improvement. Remember earlier how I said people don't trust what you say because you're not caring people? Well, I would get your team acting lessons so they can at least act like caring people, even though they're not. I think it'll make you more successful with your long-term agenda. Oh, and I would also have Biden stop reading off teleprompters. It's very disingenuous. People know he's just reading words that someone else wrote for him to say.
The answer is...
Okay, never mind. I would definitely have him keep reading off teleprompters. You know, honestly, I've never believed that some reptilian race is running this show, because, like, that'd be freaking crazy. But lately, I've been actually questioning it, because you guys act like reptiles. So, I'd get those acting lessons, guys. And lastly, tracking.
We've increased disinformation research and tracking.
You know the analogy where you're the guy who's just gonna have sex with a girl no matter what? Well, now you're that same guy peeping at that girl through her window when she doesn't know you're there. And you know, we know that he's not there to protect her. So, you know, you're probably gonna do your tracking no matter what, regardless. But that's just one of those other parts that I would probably not say out loud that often, because then we know what you're doing. So, White House, this has been hopefully a little helpful advice to help slide what you're doing beneath people's radars. My recommendation is quit saying the quiet part out loud and go back like the good old days where you were telling big tech what to censor behind closed doors while lying to the public that you're not doing that. Man, I'm getting nostalgic just thinking about it. And I know it's kind of inconvenient because it'll make your tyrannical takeover take like 50% longer, but I'm just afraid if you don't slow down your pace, the public's not gonna let you do your takeover. Okay, Biden administration, I hope that helps. Good luck. I want to thank the sponsor of this video, BlueBlox. And specifically, I want to let you know about BlueBlox's new product, BlueBlox sunglasses. Are they clinically proven to make you look 85% sexier? No, but I think you will. But they also do legitimately beneficial things as well. Like, did you know UV light going right into your eye can cause not only eye pain, but also damage to your eyes? But BlueBlox has designed state-of-the-art sunglasses with 100% UV protection and an anti-glare feature to protect your eyes while looking cool. The sunglasses also have blue light technology, meaning blue light is filtered but not blocked, also allowing 100% of beneficial red light through. This gives you the perfect balance of UV management and optimal circadian health, all in one pair of sunglasses. Did I mention that I think I look 85% sexier with them on? And maybe you'll think you do too. Only one way to find out. Go to blueblox.com/JP to get your new BlueBlox sunglasses and all your other BlueBlox products. And be sure to use the discount code JP to get 15% off.